Okay, we're ready to go.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Dave Zapponi. I'm the Executive Director of ECHO, otherwise known as the Education Council of Homeowners. We are based in San Jose with satellite offices in Tracy and Laguna Hills, California. Thank you for participating in the ECHO live stream event on essential skills for new HOA board members, featuring Julie Adaman. ECHO is a statewide nonprofit association created to support HOA board members and engaged homeowners. Our mission is to foster a better quality of life in community associations through education, advocacy, and connection. ECHO is 47 years old, which makes it the oldest association representing the collective interests of HOAs in the state of California. It prides itself on providing quality educational programs to build stronger communities. Before we move on with the program, please note, this webinar is scheduled for an hour and a half. Feel free to leave the meeting at any time. We will mute attendees during the presentation to help with sound quality and to assist speakers in developing concept. Please note that we use the chat feature for technical issues and the Q&A feature for content-related questions. You may ask questions throughout the presentation using the Q&A feature. We will be vetting and answering questions as they come in. For this program, we have added a special opportunity for you to engage with the speaker. During the audience polls, we will take questions aloud by using the raise hand feature. Simply click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen and we will recognize you if time permits. We hope this new feature will increase your experience by providing more opportunity to interact with the speaker. Please note that we have more than 200 people registered for this event, so we might not be able to answer all of you. Please be courteous and respectful of the meeting participants at all times. We reserve the right to mute or remove participants at any time for any reason. This program is copyrighted by ECHO and will be recorded. We do not give permission to others to record the meeting without prior authorization. A copy of the recording along with presentation slides will be emailed to registered participants within 7 to 10 days. ECHO is a nonprofit corporation which has and strictly follows an antitrust policy. It is available for your review on our website at www.echo-ca.org. Finally, none of what is said during the meeting shall be construed as specific legal advice for either the speaker or ECHO. If you wish specific advice, we encourage you to ask your attorney. At this time, I will announce our speaker for today's presentation on essential skills for new HOA board members. Julie Adaman is the principal of Adaman, Inc., a national consulting and employment firm specializing in community management industry. She is recognized and designated expert in community management and association and management company operations. She is the author and publisher of online classes for community managers, including CAM 101 and board members, Community Association Management 101 for board members, and is collaborating with ECHO to provide a suite of on-demand courses for HOA boards and engaged community members. At this time, I'd like to welcome Julie Adaman. Julie?
Oh, thanks, Dave. How are you guys this afternoon? I hope everybody's doing well, and welcome to the program. Tell you, full disclaimer, folks, I actually sit on 2 boards of directors. I don't know what I was thinking, but I do. So I've been on the management end for a long time, obviously, and been a consultant for a long time now as well. And now I sit on, count them, 2 boards. So it's been quite a journey. It's fun to see all sides of it. And frankly, it's given me a very 360 view of the industry as opposed to just management or just being a vendor on the outside. So anyway, let's get started. Go ahead, Hannah. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what being a board member is really all about. You have the responsibility of a trustee, and that is defined, and I'm just going to read it here with you. An individual person or member of a board given control or powers of administration of property in trust with a legal obligation to administer it solely for the purposes specified. Well, that sounds easy, right? Well, that's what you really are as board members. You are trustees. You are entrusted with actually administrating the property and the community as it was intended. But what does that translate to day to day? And that's what we're going to talk about. Go ahead, Hannah. Thank you. First of all, let's talk about why people actually become board members. So if you look on the left side of your screen, number one, I think, is personality. A lot of people like to do it. It's, you know, they maybe have leadership skills, they're good people skills, but they have a personality and a passion for people. That's number one. And the next is a certain traits or skills. Let's say we need a treasurer, and that person, and that you find a CPA or a retired CPA in your community, great treasurer. So that's the certain traits and skill sets, right? The next reason, as you all probably know, and if you're watching with this with a few other board members, don't look at them when I say this, an agenda. That means they have an agenda. They wanted to get on the board for an agenda. They want a new landscape company, new management, want to get rid of some other board members, or maybe they just really want to contribute. Say, my agenda is to get our units painted because they haven't been painted in 15 years. So agendas can be good or they can be bad. The next one is community notoriety, and that usually means somebody's pretty popular one way or the other for being negative or for being positive. You know, the best golfer or, you know, the big gadfly. Either way, those kind of people can often end up on the board. The bottom one, as you can see on the left, I put too many cocktails at the time. And when I do this program live, I get a big laugh and I ask people, who got on the board for that? And a whole bunch of hands go up, right? So, like I said, what am I doing on two boards myself? So, and then let's go over to the right-hand side. So the other was no one else would do it. I mean, how many of you out there right now are a new board member or an existing board member because no one else would do it at the time? I mean, it's like, well, I'll do it. That's how I ended up on the, actually on both boards I sit on right now. Well, you'd have thought it'd been the cocktail issue, but it wasn't. So the next one is you'd left the room at the time you were voted on. That happens too frequently. What, I'm on the board? I don't know how that happened. Oh, and I'm president? Oh my gosh. And the last one is, and truly all of this dovetails together, is a desire to do the right thing. I find that most board members are on the board because they desire to do the right thing. They may have an agenda, they may have those personality traits, nobody else would do it. And why are they on the board? Because they know they needed to serve and they wanted to serve. It's doing the right thing for your community. Okay, Hannah. So first of all, if you're a new board member, there are some particular things that are going to help you and help the rest of the board function. And if you have management, help your management staff or your community manager, or even, like I say, if you're self-managed, same thing. All of these are going to help you. Number one, the number one thing for all board members to remember is to think big picture. Now, why is that so difficult for many people? Well, because, you know, in our lives, in our lives at work, or you may have had a work that was just more functional. In other words, you weren't in charge of a bunch of people or in charge of a bigger picture. You had a more functional job, and that's what people get used to. They get used to fixing this or making that work or having this happen. And not that many people who end up on boards have ever looked at a corporation, because that's what you're all in charge of, nonprofit corporations, typically. Or a real estate entity. It's that same type of thing, though, same idea. And they don't have that big picture focus. So think big picture. You're looking at the big thing up here. You're not worrying about the petunias down here. So the first thing you want to do is stay focused on the macro issues. That means you want to be policy and not task oriented. Again, just like I said, some people are very task oriented. But as board members, you all want to set policies. And when you set those policies, you want to ensure that the policies are carried out. Back to our flower analogy, look at it this way. As a board member and as a board, you want to set policy that the flowers are purchased, they are planted, and they look nice and they live. I mean, that's really your policy. And you hand it off to the landscape company. You don't get in there and you don't plant the petunias with the landscape company. You don't micromanage their planting, you let them do their job. Same thing goes with management. Any of one of the other services, whether it's pool service or maintenance or whatever it is. You guys set the policy up here. We want things to function. We want them to work. We want our money's worth, and we want it done on time. That's what you judge people's performance by. So that's being policy oriented, not task oriented. Now, the next one goes right with that, is to stay out of the minutia. As I said, you're not planting the flowers. You're just giving the policy that the flowers are going to look nice and live, right? That's what you're doing. So stay out of that minutia and resist micromanaging. And, you know, coming from a management end, I spent many years as a community manager, a general manager, large-scale general manager as well. And in the business I'm in now, in consulting, and I also do quite a bit of recruiting for executives for management companies and for large-scale or high-rise managers, you will find that the #1 reason that community managers leave their job is being micromanaged by the board. Now, board members, if you're a board member out there and you feel like you have to micromanage, well, that's one thing. If things aren't getting done, if you have to make sure things are happening because your management staff, whether it's in-house or management company, is falling short, this is one thing, and that means you need to talk to your manager or your management company, right? But if you're micromanaging because you think you know how to do it better, or you feel like they're just not doing it exactly the way you would do it, that's not the way to, that's not good. And it also, it sends the staff running, screaming into the night. They don't want to be micromanaged, just like you don't want to be micromanaged. But if you feel like you have to do that because certain things aren't getting done, you need to talk to management staff or your management company if that's indeed the case. So there's two different things there. The next thing for you to do as board members, and this is a big thing, and you would think, don't we do this? Well, not always. You want to hold productive meetings. And what do I mean by productive? I mean meetings that are efficient, that are cordial, and that are run well, time-wise and functional-wise. And here's what I mean by that. The first thing you want to do, and this is a function for you as board members, you want to read the materials given to you ahead of time, before you get to the board meeting, and be prepared to make decisions. Now, if you have a management company or a manager on site, you should be receiving a board packet before every meeting. Typically 3 days, occasionally 5 days, but now it's more like 3 days ahead of time. You know, typically they email it to you now. So you want to read that ahead of time. You don't want to be, you know, opening up the board packet right as you walk in. That means you're not going to be ready to make decisions, and the meetings won't be as productive as they should be. Next, you want to stay on the agenda. Now, I know a lot of boards, and I get this because things come up, but they have a tendency to want to start talking about things that are not on the agenda. And the problem with that is that you have a hard time keeping track of what is going on from a month-to-month basis. So your agenda, think of it this way, your agenda stays pretty much the same month to month. It's just the old business and new business items change. But your agenda is how you are keeping track of how decisions were made every month. So things that were new business this month, let's say you had to table it, that goes to old business next month. The following month, you address it under old business because it goes right down there, and who's ever making your agenda should know this, goes right down to the old business. The board knows it needs to address this issue. The supporting materials are in your board packet or in the information that was given to you, and you've read them, and you're ready to make a decision. When boards or board members bring things up in a meeting that aren't on the agenda, they can have a tendency to kind of get lost from one meeting to another. And our goal is always to have good corporate records. So that means the minutes are well taken, and the minutes reflect these old business, new business items, and that your agenda is how you keep track of what you're doing month to month. The next one is one of my very favorites, and if this is you, I got a bone to pick with you. And if you're sitting next to that person, go ahead and look at them, and then you can give them the elbow as well. Don't enable the pontificators. Now, I think you all know what I mean by that. The pontificators are the people who make your meetings go on and on and on because, you know, they're going to sit there at the meeting and go, yep, I used to be in development because I drove by a condo one time about 5 years ago, and I'm just go on and on and on and on. You know, you all know who I'm talking about. You've all sat in meetings like that. You've probably wasted uncounted hours in meetings like that, whether in your professional life or as a volunteer board member. So I know you were thinking, well, what can I do? I'm not the president. Well, that doesn't really matter. What can you do as a board member? Point of order, Mr. Chair or Ms. Chair. Let's get back onto the agenda. So always help the chair, if they haven't done it, guide that person back onto the agenda. Don't enable those pontificators and philosophers. The next one is productive meetings. Give members confidence in leadership. When your meetings are productive, meaning you've read your materials beforehand, you're prepared to make decisions, and you've asked questions beforehand before the meeting, you stay on the agenda and get out of the weeds. You're not out there in the field somewhere, out in the Crab Nebula, wandering off. Stay on the agenda and out of the weeds. You don't enable pontificators. You don't let people hijack your meeting to where it goes on and on and on, and your eyeballs are rolling in your head. And by the way, so are all the homeowners who are out there. And you're holding those productive meetings. And that gives the owners confidence. It makes the owners feel like, these people have got it together, or we're in pretty good hands. And when the homeowners feel as if they are well managed by a caring board, that means that your problems within the community are going to stay at the lowest roar possible. It's when things start getting out of control, as you all know, when emotions flare and rumors get up, that means things are out of control in your community. Productive meetings and efficient meetings are a really good way to kind of negate that. It gives them confidence in your leadership. Go ahead, Hannah. The next one is my favorite, logic. I don't know how many of you are Star Trek fans, but Mr. Spock, logic, he was a Vulcan, based everything on logic. Thanks, Dave. Can you do it with the other hand though? I can't.
I can do both.
Talented. But what you want to do is put your emotions off to the side and think with logic. So always base decisions as a board on that logic and reason. I said stay detached from emotion. And I'm not talking about just your emotion. I'm talking about their emotion, meaning the homeowner's emotion. Now, I know many of you have been to meetings where emotions have run high and homeowners are in the audience and at the homeowner forum or wherever you allow them to speak. There's a lot of, it can be anger, it can be sadness, usually it's anger, and all of these emotions are directed at you. Board members, you always need to stay a little detached from that. It's not personal. I know it feels personal because they are your neighbors, but you need to stay detached from that emotion, because if you don't, it drives your emotions up, and then you have a tendency to make decisions not on logic and reason, but on your emotion or their emotion. When you base your decisions on logic and reason, it promotes consistent decision-making in the community. That means in the board. So that means if you've allowed, here's just a simple example. Let's say the board is acting as architectural committee and someone comes in and they says, well, I would like to extend my patio, 12 feet out into the common area. And this person is a really difficult person to deal with. And then they start berating you and they think you should. And then they call you at home and then they just basically bully you into making a decision like that, right? And you're thinking, oh my gosh, I never ever should have allowed that. We as a board should never have allowed that to happen. Yeah, because what happens the next time? Someone else comes up and says, well, I want to do my patio out 12 feet to the common area. But as a board, they're not going to be a bully to you. And you say no, that's when you start losing the respect of the people that you govern. So logic and reason and staying out of emotion promotes consistent decision-making, which in turn promotes, again, confidence in community leadership. You're not favoring one group over another. You cannot be bullied into decisions because everything is cool and calm. You base your decisions on logic and reason. Anna? Oh, here's a really interesting one. And I know you're all volunteers. And so I think sometimes it's hard for us to think about thanking other volunteers and also and how to get volunteers. So first, let's talk about seeking out good volunteers. Now, I know most everybody out there has a hard time getting volunteers for their community. Believe me, I understand, I live it. But when you do have options, you always want to try to put that volunteer, let's say someone comes up and says, oh, I want to be on the social committee. And the board talks to them, oh, this might be a really good thing. And then you find out that, well, maybe they're not so fit for the social committee. Maybe their background is in finance. And you also have to need a finance committee chair. So you kind of want to try and guide them to the place where you think that they are going to serve the community best. That's if they'll do it. And if they're really hard set on social committee, then you got to do it because we have to deal with our volunteers as they come. But If you find someone who's a very social person and they like to throw parties and they know everybody, they're better off on the social committee than they will be on the finance committee, because right brain, left brain thinking, right? So it's like I always say, I thank God for people who can do accounting. I mean, I understand it, but I wouldn't want to do it. And people in accounting typically wouldn't want to do what I do. They don't want to go out there. They don't want to speak in front of people. They certainly never wanted to be a manager, that's for sure. So try to put people where they're going to be the happiest and most productive for the community. Because the one thing you have to realize is that next bullet point down. Volunteers work for satisfaction of participation in the process. They don't work for a paycheck. So that you need to put them in a position where they will be the most satisfied with their participation. Next, let's talk about recognizing our volunteers. And this is a really important thing for boards to do, because we don't think about it. We're hardly recognized ever, right? Other than for people to complain at you. But as board members, as leaders, it's our job to acknowledge and recognize staff and volunteers all the time, publicly, privately. This means in meetings, in the newsletter, on the website, e-blasts, whatever it is. Always. I had a board member one time. I learned so much from this gentleman. He had been a senior executive vice president with Southern California Edison. Just a fantastic a managerial teacher, really was. And I didn't realize it at the time how much I was learning, but I look back and it's mind-blowing to me. And he called it spin the halo all the time. And I thought that's actually a really good way to say it. And you can spin the halo of other board members as well. Always want to thank them. And you know why this is? Well, you know why it is. Because you seldom get thanks. Well, think about it. If you have staff, they seldom get thanked for anything. When I do these in-person, which eventually in-person stuff will come back, won't it? I hope so. But when I do these talks in person, I will always ask, how many board members are out in the audience, how many managers, how many service providers. And when I talk to the managers and the board members, but first I'll go to the managers, how many people were thanked? How many managers were thanked for anything in the last 3 weeks? And out of maybe 50 or 60 managers, about 4 people will raise their hand. And that's really sad. And it's a hard enough job as it is. And that means not even board members are thanking them for stuff. So if you need to recognize your management staff, whether it's your manager, your GM, maybe it's the person who does your architectural walkthroughs, whatever it is, say thank you and thank them publicly. Thank them at a meeting, thank them at the annual meeting. And you know what? That's again, this is people do this for the volunteers, do it for satisfaction of participation in the process, not for a paycheck. So y'all can't tell me that you don't like to be thanked for your work. And I'm going to thank all of you guys right now. Thank you for being a board member. Our whole industry thanks you, because without you, we would come to a complete stop. I know you only did it because you had too many cocktails at the time, but that's neither here nor there. Another reason you want to thank people and you want to build this up and make this a positive experience is because you board members cannot do this alone. You need other volunteers. You need staff if you have staff, and if you're not self-managed, you need those other people to help relieve some of the burden of your duties, right? And you know what? You don't want to do this forever. And how do we bring people up? We bring them in as committee members, that's how we bring them into the process, or ad hoc committee members, a committee that's maybe put together to study one particular issue and then it's disbanded. Bring those people in and thank them. Tell them, make it a positive experience for them, because people want to be a part of something positive. Make that happen for them, and you will see how your community will reap the benefits of that. When people have a positive experience with the association as a volunteer, well, at any time, but particularly as a volunteer, that kind of goes out to the community. It's got tendrils that go out there, and you have no idea the other people that is touching. Oh, someone said, oh, wow, I was on the architectural committee. It was a great experience. It was just really wonderful. Now, they may never really think that you thanked them several times, the board thanked them, but they come away with something positive, and they talk to someone else in the community. It's like, oh, I always thought that would be such a drag. Maybe I'll volunteer. So think about it. You want to pick the right volunteers, and you want to recognize their contributions all the time publicly. Hannah?
All right, so we're gonna take some questions at this time. Let me pull up our participants. So there's quite a few that have a hand raised. If this was from, if this is an actual, I don't know if these are actual questions because I know some of you raised your hand earlier. So put your hand, lower your hand if it's, if you don't have a question that you'd like answered. Let's see, Barbara. Okay, we're gonna allow you to talk.
Okay, hi. I don't know. I just wanted to ask you a question about, the companies that we hire to take care of our properties. What are they called? Property manager, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm just a brand new board member, so this might be a silly question, but we have somebody on our board that is fabulous, and she does everything. She does, plans the landscaping. She contacts everybody. She does so much. Can she be the property manager? Why do we pay this property manager who is not doing as much as one of our board members are? And can she be a paid property manager?
No, if she is on your board, she cannot be a paid property manager. So there's certainly no reason you can't hire her as an in-house employee, or she becomes, a contractor if that's what she wants. I would say that, you need to understand what community association managers are and their companies are hired to do. And it's typically not everything the other board members are doing. Board members have stuff they need to do that the community association managers and management companies do not. The management companies typically produce your financials, they pay your bills, they collect your assessments, they do all kinds of that financial back work. They attend your meetings, they process all the administration. There's a lot to it. And as a new board member, which thank you, by the way, and good luck, that you may want to take a look and read the management contract, because then you'll know exactly what they're contracted to do.
Okay.
And also the woman who is doing all the work that she's doing, like planning the landscaping, the management companies don't do that. That's what volunteers do, or you hire a professional to do that. You're lucky you have someone who's doing it as a volunteer. So, and so if you hire this woman in particular, this person on the board, she will have to collect the assessments, put liens on properties if that's part of what your management company does, or cause that to be done, pay all the bills, manage all the bank accounts. So there's a lot more to it. So I would tell you, look at that management company contract, and then you'll see what they are contracted to do.
She also does financials. She tells us what it's going to cost every month and what it's going to cost for the year. Is that normally what she's supposed to do as a board member also?
Sure, absolutely. One of the boards I sit on, as our president also acts as our treasurer. He's a retired CPA. And he does that. I mean, he doesn't produce the financial statements, but he's the one who says, here's where we're going to go this month, and here's why the money was expended last month, because he keeps track of all that. Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I maybe just did not understand it. Thank you so much.
Okay, you bet.
Thank you, Barbara. Okay, I've got one question that was in the Q&A. Julie, how do you balance, or how do you find the balance between fulfilling your duties of diligence as a board member and yielding control of day-to-day decisions about the property to the property manager or community manager?
Well, again, there certainly is a balance, but the balance is this: is that to understand the balance, you need to understand what your management company was contracted to do. So I'm going to refer you back, just like I did for Barbara, is to please read your management contract and see what they are to do by contract. They're all actually pretty much the same. But there are things that you are supposed to do as a board member, and management may be contracted to assist you with something like that. For example, let's use budget preparation, because that's a real common one. Management companies are hired, when they're hired, part of their contract typically says they will assist the board in budget preparation. Now, that often translates into the manager putting together a preliminary budget, but then it goes to the board for, or the finance committee. It goes to the finance committee, then the board, and you all as trustees, as the fiduciaries in charge of the community, actually, that's your responsibility to set that budget. It's not management's responsibility. And so that type of thing, that stuff you cannot, well, you cannot delegate. And if you do delegate it, if you say to the management company, just put together a budget and we're going to adopt it, you're shirking your authority. I don't think, so you're shirking your duty. I don't think that's what you're doing, but just trying to give that as an example. So if you aren't understanding what you are to be doing as a board member versus what your management company is to be doing, take a look at your management contract. And if you have questions, specific questions, once you've done that, please feel free to email me. I'm always on the other end of the computer, and I answer questions like this all the time for people. I mean, just shoot me an email. Keeps me sharp.
Thank you. Is there an optional number of board liaisons on each committee?
You don't even have to have board liaisons on any committee unless your documents call for it, or unless it's something the board thinks needs to happen. I would say the most optimum thing is to have one person who's the liaison. I know associations that like to have a board member on every one of those committees, and the board member is the liaison, and that can work just fine. But some communities are very large and have a whole bunch of committees, and there's maybe only 7 board members, and they have 15 committees that are active and running. So that would not obviously be functional, because that person, the volunteer, would be going to 5 or 6 meetings a month, which is a lot to ask of someone. So no, to answer your question, no, there's not necessarily an optimum or a requirement, but it's really what works for your community and your board. Here's one thing. If you are finding that you're having difficulty with one particular committee and they're not communicating with the board, maybe that's a committee a board member needs to sit on, so they get that kind of communication. So that's the kind of situation I'm talking about. I think you need to be fluid with this.
Gotcha. Okay. We're going to take one more aloud. Craig Yates, looks like you've got your hand raised. Let's see if I can get it to unmute you. Being stubborn. Sorry, guys. Well, it's not letting me. Oh, there we go.
He is.
Okay.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Hi, Craig.
My question is, during the board meeting, when we have the forum session, should the comments from the forum of the residents be included word for word in the minutes?
No. No. Minutes are not for verbatim conversation. If you want, you don't even have to incorporate any of the homeowner forum. I would just note homeowner forum was held. However, if you feel like as a board that you want to include something general, you would just say homeowner forum was held, blah, blah. Topics discussed included landscaping, snow removal, and whatever else. It's that type of thing. So absolutely not. And the homeowner forum, unless this is required in your state, which I believe it's required in Nevada, it has to be within the meeting, but the homeowner forum is not in the meeting, so it's not really part of the minutes. So, but short answer, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I actually see one more that I think would be a really good one to ask.
Good.
Can board members meet in between meetings if decisions are not being made?
It depends on where you are. It depends on what state you're in. So Dave, I'm going to let you take that for California, because I'm from California, but I've lived in Washington State now, and we have completely different laws up here, and you guys have advanced so much. I try to keep up, but you got a lot. Dave, go ahead.
Okay, well, why don't you rephrase the question for me?
Okay, so can board members meet in between meetings if decisions are not being made?
But they have to, yes, they can meet, but they have to call a special meeting.
In California, yeah.
In California, sure. And then they have to have a conversation. And so they'll have to have a conversation, and notices have to be sent out. And so there's a whole procedure to do that. It's not as easy as you might think.
So you can't just meet informally and make decisions and then note them in the minutes later.
You have to be very careful not to have a quorum. And so if you don't have a quorum, that's important. So you can have 2 if you have a board of 5 and you have 2 of the board members get together and then another board member, and so you can go around and do a round robin. You can send out an email, but you can't have deliberation and you can't make decisions. So
Yeah.
that's the problem. But it's good. You can have work sessions, and you can call those and have people come together for that. But you just can't have a quorum of the board unless you duly notice it and go through the meeting procedures.
Yeah, in the state. In other states, you can meet outside of the meeting and then just know what was done later in the minutes if you need to do that. But check your documents and check state law. And if you're a large association, you have counsel and retainer, I would discuss it with my counsel.
Yeah, definitely do that.
Great. So we're gonna do the poll. And okay, let me go ahead and launch this. So hypothetically, if you're going out to a bid to bid your landscaping contract, should you always take the lowest bid no matter what?
I better see the right answers here.
Okay. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll. We got a few people squeaking in there to answer. Okay, and I will share the results with everyone. So we had 128 people, that was 98% of people that voted that said no. They should not always take the lowest bid no matter what. One person said yes, and another person said, I don't know. Julie?
I am so proud of you guys. You gave exactly the right answer. I mean, you know, the thing about always taking the lowest bid, associations have done that for years. And actually, all of you people participating in this have enough knowledge of the community association world to be a part of this and to understand ECHO and what it does. So you're here, and oftentimes we're preaching to the choir. But no, you never always want to accept the lowest bid, especially if it's a real low bid, because usually there's a problem. So let's move. Are we done now,
Yep.
Hannah?
Yep,
okay,
we're ready to
the
move
next one,
on.
we'll talk about this.
Great.
Okay, because let's talk about this. Everyone, even you board members out there, new board members, you want to always be aware to be realistic about what it costs, how much it costs to do business, about the cost that come to your association, whether it's landscaping, management, the copies that you have to pay for that management charges you for, and people are like, oh my God, it's 10 cents a copy. Well, you know, that's actually pretty cheap these days. So that's just the cost of doing business. We have those costs. Now, as far as getting new proposals, just like we were talking about, understand what a request for proposal is. That's an RFP. And when you are going out to bid on landscaping or roofing or whatever it is, you should always put out an RFP to the bidding contractors. That means they're all bidding apples to apples. Now, as far as putting together an RFP, if you have management, there are many times that your manager will have access to RFPs from other communities that they manage or that their company manages. So you may be able to utilize those. If you are a large scale association and you have very complicated issues, let's just say, well, I'll tell you the last real job I had, I was the manager of Palm Valley Country Club in Palm Desert, California. We had 1,274 condominiums. And we went through a huge construction defect lawsuit. In fact, we had the largest settlement at the time. I think it was right around 34 million. This is in the 90s, right? So it was a big deal. But when we went to have the roofs fixed, because there was roof failure, right? So went to have the roofs fixed, it was a giant, obviously, prospect. So we hired, we hired a roofing consultant, and that's what he did. I mean, obviously we had a large budget and we had this big settlement we were dealing with, but any large scale community or a complicated project, you should hire a consultant to put that together if your management company doesn't have it, or even if your management company has it and you want to run it by a consultant, maybe they don't have to do it. That's a good idea. And always, if it's a big, complicated project and a big contract, it's going to be a lot of dollars and the RFP is extensive, have your counsel review it. It's always my recommendation. Better be safe than sorry. But when those RFPs are done, you want to make sure they're based in reality. So you can't ask for the moon and expect to pay $4. It's just not going to happen. As I say, suffer no illusions. And don't expect Mercedes for performance from a 63 VW Bug, which was my first car. Ran on a cylinder and a half. It was great. How many of you out there owned a Volkswagen Bug somewhere in your life? Dave, did you?
No, not me.
Never owned a Bug? I know a bunch of you did. Just remember this part about it. The windshield's like right here next to your face. It's so funny to get in one nowadays. The Mercedes
Lots
is
of people are raising their hand. I think lots of people have
I always like it
one.
because the trunk, the trunk is in the front, so it has like no crumple zone at all. Like, your legs are right there if you get no head on. But anyway, I love that car, and I think I paid $400 for it. So, this is many, many moons ago. So anyway, back on the topic at hand and away from VW bugs, which, as my husband says, is the only good one is a dead one. He says, but no, so let's talk about accepting the low bid. Now, I want to tell you that there is certain value in accepting a low bid. However, know that if you do accept the low bid, and I don't mean low by $100, I mean low by $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, something is not necessarily right there. But if you accept it and you've looked at the contract and it looks right and your counsel says it's good, you know what? Understand that there is a cost to managing that bid, because there's something's wrong for a reason. And developers and builders actually do this a lot. They will accept a low bid on something, but they know there are going to be change orders. So they're not really going to get it for, let's say, whatever the issue was. Let's say it was $15,000. You know you're not going to get it for 15 because that was 10,000 lower than the last guy. But you probably will have change orders. You need to manage those change orders, or your management does. They may charge you extra for that. Manage those changes, and you still may get it for less than the full price of the next guy. So if you accept that low bid, understand there is going to be a cost to managing that bid, and it may actually end up more. Okay, Hannah. Oh, speak with one voice. I had someone email this to me today about last week's presentation because I talked about this. They sent me an email about this. If you are on a board, you are a body. You're part of a body. You're individuals. You don't have to think alike. In fact, you shouldn't think alike. And I think it was George Patton said, if everyone's thinking alike, someone's not thinking, right? But you can disagree at a meeting. You have a 5-member board, and 3 board members want to vote yes on whatever it is, and 2 board members want to vote no. And these 2 really feel strongly about the no, and the 3 like, nope, we're not budging. Okay, boom, motion passes. So you've disagreed at the meeting, but once that vote is cast and the community is set forward, you really need to speak with one voice because you're a team. That means you're not going out after the meeting is over and bad-mouthing other board members or telling people how terrible that decision was, because that does nothing but create animosity, and it also takes it keeps the board from gaining confidence or maintaining confidence of the owners. Now, if someone asks you, let's say you were the person who really disagreed, and I'm not saying they didn't vote on something illegal. Let's just say it's all on the up and up, whatever it is, but you did not want to do that. It's okay if a homeowner comes up to you and says, did you vote on that? And you can say, I did vote on it. I voted no. But we're moving forward. I disagree with it, but we're moving forward. And you don't undermine the rest of the board. How many of you out there are parents? I mean, yeah, right? So what happens when your child wants to do something, they come to mom, can we go do this, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, no, you can't do that. I'm not gonna, heavens no, you're not going there. And what do? They run off and ask their dad. And dad says yes, then what does that do to the parents? It splits the body apart. And what they're doing is they're playing one side against the other. You don't want to be that person on a board. And again, assuming all of the decisions are on the up and up, let's just say you didn't think the association should spend $30,000 out of the reserves to resurface the pool decks. You didn't agree with that at all. You didn't think they should do it. But that's a legal decision. And so, that decision was done legally. And that's, you had the money to take out, you put it out and did that. So speak with one voice. Especially if you have a contentious community and you have a lot of naysayers in the back and there's other issues going on, a lot of political problems, any flaw in the armor of the board will be exploited by those people who want to disrupt the community and disrupt the goings on of the board. So disagree at a meeting, but when you go out, speak with one voice. Hannah. Oh, this is a good one. I don't know how many of you out there on the board got elected on a narrow agenda. Many, many people do. And actually sometimes they're great board members and they end up going, oh, okay, I get this. But if you got elected, even just recently, on a narrow agenda of, say, fire the landscape company or lower dues by 20%. Let's take the lower dues by 20% because as funny as that may sound to some of you, that's really, really common. We want to lower dues. We're paying too much, right? So if that was you, or you know someone who did, don't look at them. You know someone who got on the board by wanting to do that, and they were elected on that narrow agenda, what happens is once you're on the board and you realize, because now you've been given access, not that you couldn't have had access before, but that access to the financial statements and the budgets, you've looked at all the contracts, you see how everything operates, and you realize, oh, I can't do that. You know what? You need to let that go and move on. When board members are elected on that narrow agenda and they discover they were wrong and they don't let that go, what does that lead to? It's the dreaded agenda vacuum. So if you're already an existing board member and you have a board member that's new, they found out their agenda, their narrow agenda is in error and they've got all this pent up energy, you know what you need to do? You need to bring them into the process of the board fast and furious, very quickly. There's a lot of other issues to focus on. Put them on something else. Even if you have to put together an ad hoc committee and ask them to study something, channel that energy. Because even though, you know, you may roll your eyeballs at what they wanted to do when they first got on the board, that person can be incredibly productive for you. And, you know, we always need volunteers. So that's how to handle that when that person has the agenda vacuum, all that pent up energy, and maybe they have all the political backing for people who want to lower dues. You got to give them something else to focus on. So that's the next. If the agenda vacuum does not get filled, what happens to all that pent up energy? They're going to find somewhere wholly unproductive to let it out. And that could be on you, other board members, or typically it goes to management because they are not a peer. They don't live there, you know, so that's what happens. And it can be an ugly, ugly thing. So bring them into the process, fast and furious, give them another project. You know, there's plenty to do. And that's how to handle the person with the personal agenda. If that's you, move on. Hannah.
All righty, guys. We got lots of
This is
questions.
my favorite part. I like this part.
Lots of questions.
This is my favorite part.
Okay. Can you limit homeowner comments in an open forum? And if so, how many minutes do they get to talk?
Yes, you can limit comments, especially if you have a large community. That's a really good idea. Typically, communities that do that is around 5 minutes or so per person. That's about it, and so that keeps it flowing. It keeps people from rambling on, and it also keeps the person who's talking focused on what they want to say. So about 5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Who normally writes the RFP, the general manager, board, or committee chair?
It can be any one of the above, all of the above, or someone hired. I just talked about this. If you asked this previously, and maybe didn't hear it, but I'll just go very briefly. It depends on what it is, and it depends on who's in your community. For example, if you are having a large roofing project done, and one of your board members happens to be a roofing contractor, now he's not bidding, but he happens to be a roofing contractor who's well versed in this, boy, you got a great person to write an RFP. That's fabulous. Your general manager may have the expertise to do so because they've done it previously, or they have copies of RFPs from previous ones they've done, maybe at another community. You may have to hire someone to do it. You may have to hire an expert to do it. Sometimes your counsel can do it. Some legal counsel can do it. So it's all of the above or none of the above or a combination thereof. It's whatever works and who has the expertise.
Okay, this seems like an interesting question. It says, in California, do emails mean that we're meeting? Emails are fast and furious with my HOA. Can we make decisions like calling a member to an infraction meeting online?
Go ahead, Dave.
Those are called hearings, by the way. They're not, and yes, you can.
Okay. Let's see, let's take one from, do we have any people that have raised their hands? Okay, Bob, if you still have, again, if your hand is up, lower if you don't have a question. I see, Bob, that you've got yours raised, and I will unmute you. Bob, you're unmuted. let us know if you,
I don't have a question. I was responding to a previous poll.
Oh,
okay, okay, thank you.
I do want to point out that under the chat, somebody put up they owned a Carmen Gia. Same thing, folks. just a nicer body style.
That's hilarious. That's good.
Let's see, Nancy, you've got your hand up. Let's see, let me go ahead and unmute you. Sometimes it lags just a couple minutes or a minute to keep pushing unmute. Okay, any minute, Zoom. Okay, that's not, it's taking a little too long. Okay. All right, those are taking too long. Okay.
Dave, you and I could burst out into song.
Julie, is there information on how to review a financial statement? It looks like you have to be a CPA to do the review. Is that, do you have any,
Hannah, read that again, please.
is there information on how to review a financial statement, or do you have to be a CPA to do the review?
Okay, there's a couple different things you may be talking about. If you are talking about reviewing the financial statement as a board member and you just have a hard time learning how to read it or have time reading it, or are you talking about an annual review? Those are two different things. So let me address them both very quickly. If you are a board member and you're having a difficult time reading financial statement, whoever's producing those financial statements for you, be it a management company or you may have a third party who does that for you and you may be self-managed, whatever, whoever does that should be able to give you a tutorial. I will tell you that in my online classes for, oh, I'm sorry, that's for managers, right? Forget that part, board members, or you can take my manager classes, but I teach you how to review financial statements. If you are talking about the annual review that may be required by your state or by your governing documents, that is typically done by a CPA, yes. I don't know that it has to be done by a CPA, but I think it has to be done by an accountant of some sort. But that would, you have to check with your state and your governing documents if that's what you're referring to.
Okay. Miguel, it looks like we were able to get you unmuted. Do you have a question?
Yeah, just so you know, I've been having some Zoom problems, so others where you're trying to unmute might be having the same problem I had and everything. But that aside, so the question I have is, I have a good board in that they show up to meetings and they do make decisions and so forth. The problem that I have is that the board tends to be, hey, great, we'll show up for a meeting and it all looks good and everything, but they don't do the follow-up work that they've signed up for in the in-between. And then they show up to the next meeting and nothing's been done. And then some decisions have to be postponed because they say, well, I need more information. Well, you were supposed to have gotten more information, not only for yourself, but the rest of us, or you were supposed to go and do this or whatever, and so forth and so forth. And so I'm just kind of looking for what kind of suggestions you could offer in terms of how do you get board members to realize that if they take ownership of something, that they have to follow up on it and everything. And as part of that ownership is if it has to do with bringing it back to the rest of the board. So for example, our board members are the sponsors for our committees. They need to do those jobs. For example, they're supposed to submit prior to every board meeting to be included in the board packet a committee report. Simple one sheet. What's going on, what problems you have, what you need the board to make a decision on. And that never seems to happen. And yet we bring it up, we talk about it, everybody agrees that, oh, we need to do more, but yet the same behavior continues.
Miguel, let me ask you, are you a manager or a board member?
I am a board member. I'm the president.
And how many members are on your board?
5.
And are you managed or are you self-managed?
We are managed.
By a management company?
Correct.
You know what, well, for the committees, that's a tough thing, but you know, first of all, my first answer was how do you get them to do it? Cattle prod was my first answer, but aside from that, because that's probably, you know, not polite.
Right.
You know, if the truth is they will not take ownership of this and do it, and you can't move them forward because obviously they don't feel a particular responsibility to do so, you may have to farm that out to your management company. Obviously, you're going to pay for it. So, but if things aren't getting done and the board isn't making decisions and the board members themselves aren't bringing the information that they're supposed to, the association still needs to move forward. You still have decisions you need to make. So your next option is to farm that out to your management company. Yes, you're going to have to pay for it, but that means you're moving forward. Now that pay for it thing, that may be the cattle prod you need for the other board members. But I would talk to management and say, these are the things we need. Can you guys provide them? It may be provided under your contract. I don't know, but you have to look at your contract, speak with the executive of your management company or whoever the supervising person is, and see if you can get that done and how much it's going to cost.
Yeah. Okay, great. That's something I had not thought about, using the money element on them.
Oh yeah. Money's a powerful motivator.
Yeah. The money bat.
the money cattle prod.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Miguel. All right, Nancy, I'm going to try one more time to unmute you. It is still not working for you, Nancy. I apologize. If you have your, Nancy, if you want to put your question in the Q&A, I'll be sure and get to it. Okay, let's see. We'll ask one more from the Q&A. Should the committees also speak with one voice, Julie?
Yes, any kind of body should. I mean, you don't want to, you know, assuming everything being done is legal, you know, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Once the decision is made by the committee, and you should be holding committee meetings, like regular meetings, and you want to take notes of those meetings, so you have some sort of a record of what's been done, what's been decided. They can look just like minutes, or they can just be simple notes that's, you know, say what's gone on, depends on where you are. But yeah, absolutely. You don't, you know, when a committee, like you're part of the leadership of the association, even if you're just on a committee, you know, but the committee is not going to be effective, and it's not going to be well respected or regarded by the homeowners if people are off backbiting each other because they didn't want to do something, or we wanted to do something, we didn't like what those people did. So yes, it doesn't mean you can't say when someone asks you, no, I didn't vote for that, I disagree with it, but here we go, just like a board member. You always want to have a better, that creates that confidence in your leadership. And like I said, as committees, you are part of the leadership of the organization.
Great, thank you. So we're just going to quickly ask our poll. This was actually one that was asked last week, but it'll be interesting to see if we get around the same result. Let's see. So the question is, do you have a newsletter that goes out at least quarterly? I'll give you guys about 15 seconds to answer. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. Squeeze in those answers. Okay. And share results.
Ooh.
Oh.
Different from last week.
Yeah, that is very different from last week.
Yeah. So it's about 50-50. Well, a little bit more 57, 51%, 47, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much like our entire nation. Everything's 51-47. Okay, so that's good for the poll. Let's use it for the next slide.
Great. Okay.
As a part of being board members, if your community is not sending out a regular communication to the owners, newsletter, e-blasts, whatever it is, almost all the newsletters are electronic now, posting on the bulletin board, whatever it is, you aren't doing your job. You really need to communicate. So let's go through the list here. The first thing about communication you have to be is consistent. So that's, like I said, regular, whether it's quarterly. If you have large associations, oftentimes it's monthly. If you've got a lot going on, it may be monthly. But here's the reason. You always want to be viewed as, and you want to be as transparent as possible. There is no such thing as too much communication. You need to get it all out there to everybody. Tell them what's going on, tell them what's coming up. You want it to be, next one down, relevant. Relevant communication. If you, in your newsletter, are talking about, I don't know. So I've actually seen newsletters where people put recipes in them because they didn't have anything to fill it there. And maybe once, but that's like the board, if you don't have something that's relevant to what's going on, let's say you put the recipe in or something, you know, that doesn't belong there. You got the recipe put in there, but you completely, you know, skipped over the fact that, you know, 6 or 7 units are going to be painted over here and the color's changing. That means the board is not tuned to the needs of the community. If the board isn't tuned, or they're not viewed as being tuned to the needs of the community, it doesn't build confidence in the membership. So relevant communication, consistent communication, and lastly, positive communication. You know, I talked about this last week. In fact, I even had a side-by-side of normal communications being the no police, as I've said here, and positive communication. So what you want to do, let me step back for a second. In our industry, whether we're in management or whether we are board members or committee members, we are usually, as I say, the no police. We're always telling people no. No, you can't park there. No, you can't let your dog poop there. No, you can't use the pool yet because we're still under COVID or we're back under COVID. No, 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 no. And unfortunately, it's just it's part and parcel in the nature of the industry. However, you can communicate that no completely differently. You can communicate it as more reinforcing positive behavior as opposed to, you know, smacking somebody for negative behavior. So you want to thank people in advance for, you know, understanding that if you don't pick up your dog poop over here, other people don't like it. Even better, if as a board, you have a particular area where everybody walks their dogs and a lot of people don't clean up, you know, the dog poo. Have some of those the doggy waste stations installed that have the bag and the little dumpster in there. So what have you done? You have given people an option for cleaning up the dog poo, and it's right where it needs to be. You're going to communicate that back to the owners as, hey, everybody, we know we've been having some trouble with people not picking up after their dogs. And, you know, we understand you're kind of far away, don't want to carry that bag. We installed a doggy waste station so everybody can be happy, including the dogs and the people they own. So you can turn these around. Everything doesn't have to be, no, don't do this. It's thank you in advance, and here's what we're doing. Positive behavior reinforced is much better than hitting people on the nose with a rolled up newspaper, because that just makes them not care. And actually pretty much they just stop reading what you're sending out. They don't pay attention to the signs. They don't pay attention to what you're sending if it's no, 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 no. You all know it, you don't like it either. So think of it that way. Flip that communication on its head and communicate early and often. Hannah. Here's another part that you want to, does this look like your annual meeting, anybody? Yeah, I've been to a few of those myself when I was a manager. When you are a great communicator, when your board and community communicate relevant information, they put it out regularly, and it's your policy to do so, you are making a decision to bring owners into the process of administering the community. Communication, when people have it when they need it. Transparency lets people be a part of the process. They may never say a word about it, but they know what's going on. So they're like, okay, yeah, I agree with that. Ooh, maybe I don't. Maybe I'll send an email off, or maybe I'll attend the next meeting. Maybe I should be on a committee. Wow. See, all of these things work really to the good of the community, because those people who are a part of the process have a tendency not to be a part of the angry mob, the one we're looking at right here, the torches and pitchfork crowd. And you all know where they're coming is for you at the annual meeting. So one of the ways to stave off all kinds of problems in community associations is communication. So many owners feel as if they are in the dark, and even if you are publishing semi-regularly, you're like, well, they could call me. But when stuff is being pushed out by you as a board all the time, they almost, even if they say, well, I didn't get that, you're like, well, we sent one out last week, we sent one out the week before, we sent one out 2 weeks before that, all with the same information. Would you like me to send you copies? You board members or you managers out there who may want to do that. So then you have something all the time, and it kind of stops the naysayers. So once again, you want to bring people into the process of administrating, I guess I will say, the community as a whole. You want them to be a part of it, and you want that process to be positive. Hannah. One of my favorite ones here, have a sense of humor. I have to tell you folks, this is a funny business. I've been in this business 33 years. I know it's hard to believe since I'm only 35, but they're the weirdest situations come up, and you all know it. Excuse me a sec. One time when I was a manager and I was managing in the Palm Springs area, Palm Springs, California, very, very hot in the summertime, right? And people would come down, but this is way before the water shortages, way, way before that. So we had water, and we kept the lawns green all summer, unless one of the sprinklers broke. But other than that, lawns were green and beautiful, and people would come down from LA for their weekend place, and it'd be like August and 115 outside. And I had some lady call me up. I was a manager of this account, and call me up and tell me the grass was too green. It's too green. I'm like, I've never heard of such a thing. I'm like, well, I'll take that under advisement. So people do some funny things, and I know every one of you has some strange story, and you may be the subject of the strange story. So as board members, you have to remember to always keep a sense of humor, you managers too, because whatever is going on in your community right now, and you've had to deal with some challenging situations, just remember, in about 6 months, you are going to be snickering at that situation. So have the sense of humor. Go on to the next slide, Hannah. Here's another one for you. See, can we extend the annual meeting? I've got a lot of complaining to do. How many of you have been there, or how many of you has that been? It's a funny thing. It's a funny thing. It's a funny business. You have to do it. Oh, let me ask you guys. Oh, let's see. Can I ask a question, Hannah? And can I get them to answer with a hand raise? You're muted.
Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. You can ask a question and get the response to people raising their hand.
Yeah, just raise your hands if you have seen it. Has anyone here seen the Geico ad about homeowners association that just came out recently?
Mm-hmm.
Hands up if you've seen it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, there's 38, 39, 40 people raising their hands. Yeah.
Okay, all right. How many of you thought it, okay, hands down. Everybody's hands down?
Yes, they're putting their hands down.
Okay, second question. How many of you thought it was hilarious because it was so close to the truth?
It's going up again.
That's right. That's the funny part about it, and I actually know people in our industry who were offended by that. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Because it was so close to home is why it was so funny. So, I mean, we've all been there, and I can't think, what's the woman's name? Cynthia. Oh, I see you've met Cynthia, or we could say Karen. And it was just beautiful. So that's a part of having the sense of humor of the industry. You just have to, because sometimes you just want to tear your hair out, but it's pretty funny. Okay, next one.
Okay. And again, for people that raise their hands, lower them, and
Hands
if
down.
so that way when we get to questions, I don't mistake you for having a question. All right.
And for all of you, here's the wrap up to this. As new board members, or as old board members, or as I prefer, classic board members, or managers, all of us, you need to value integrity and credibility above all else. The credibility, integrity of the community, of you as board members, of you as managers. Why? Because it's all we have, and we take it with us everywhere. So when a board exhibits all of these traits that we have talked about as new board members or as existing boards, it is what builds your credibility in the community. When you act with integrity, you always want to communicate, you want to be transparent, you want to hold productive meetings, you want to bring people into the process. That's operating with integrity. You're always working on behalf of others. Board members, your trustees, your fiduciaries, you are always working on behalf of others. So as volunteers, I know sometimes it's hard to wrap your mind around it, because you're like, oh my God, I don't get paid for this, and I spend so many hours doing it. I know, believe me, I'm one of you. But this is what it's all about for us. This is what it's all about. Because if you don't have it, the community just will never be what it can be, and your board will never be what it can be. And you managers, You take your value, you take your credibility and integrity everywhere. This is a very small industry, even nationally. Trust me, if I don't know you personally, I know someone who does. And so when you want to move from one community to another or one management company to another, this precedes you, your integrity and your credibility. Next one, Hannah. Oh, now we're at the end. Okay, I guess we can do questions, right? Hannah, you're blocked.
Yeah.
Sorry, I always forget to unmute myself. Okay.
Okay, speaking of funny, so people have to read this one right over here, which is just wonderful. I mean, unless we receive the outstanding balance of your HOA dues within 10 days, we will have no choice but to destroy your credit, ruin your reputation, make you wish you were never born. If you've already sent the 7 cents, please disregard this notice. That's what I call negative communication. How many of you have received something like that? Oh, yeah, it's funny. So, okay, we can take some questions.
Okay. And Julie, if you see any questions in the Q&A that maybe my eyes looked over that you think would be good for the group, please read them out loud and go ahead and answer. Okay. What is the board's responsibility when too many requirements are neglected, unfulfilled, or mismanaged?
Please, I need a clarification. What requirements? That's a huge subject.
Okay. Yeah, there's no really clarification. It was,
okay.
That was just the question. Let's see, what is too many?
I got some over here. I'm looking on the chat.
Okay.
Here's someone asked, they said, how long are board meetings supposed to last? The last meeting I was on where I became a board member was 3 hours, and then the board was staying on after all those not yet board members got off. Okay, I'm not quite sure what that part means, but how long are board meetings supposed to last? Well, I'm going to submit to you that unless you have a very large scale association with a huge agenda, meaning you have lots and lots and lots of items, your meeting should be no longer than 1 hour to 1.5 hours. Now, I know a lot of you are going, oh my God, I'd give my left arm for a 1.5 hour meeting, but there's no reason to have those long meetings. The problems are we address them all actually in this program. Typically, board members don't have enough information, or they haven't read the information ahead on time, or as Miguel was talking about earlier, his board members haven't collected the information that needs to be brought. So board meetings last where we have the pontificators and philosophers who just want to dominate everything in the meeting. All of these contribute to long board meetings. Poor agendas, that also include contributes to long board meetings. And here's something: if you have long board meetings, try using a timed agenda. That means, call to order is 10 seconds. Approval of the minutes is 1 minute, and you put each one of those on there. Now, are you going to actually meet every one of those goals? Not necessarily, but it kind of keeps everybody aware that we're on pace there. So, yeah, 1.5 hours at the most in a well-run board meeting.
Great. I've got another one here. So if an HOA is about to update their CC&Rs and they're forming a committee to do that, do you have any suggestions about what that committee should look like? How many owners, how many board members, or any just overall suggestions on how to make that process
well, if
run
you are
smoother?
if you're redoing your CC&Rs, I would try to find people in the community who have some ability to write and write well documents, especially that have a certain legal ease to them. But I also want to caution everybody that if you are rewriting your CC&Rs, your counsel needs to go over those CC&Rs, and you're going to spend some money so they can fix them and make them look, even if you put some forth, you are going to have your attorney look them over, make sure that they are all in compliance with the law in your state. So find people who, okay, I'm going to tell you, I just rewrote the CC&Rs for the little community I live in. We're 16 lots, only 14 units, and we share a well, and that's it. But the documents hadn't been rewritten since 1978. So I got the pleasure of doing that, but I have some expertise in writing that way, right? But we still spent money. I think on legal fees, we spent probably, and we're 14 homes, 16 lots, and I think we spent about $3,500, maybe $4,000 in legal fees, just to have the attorneys bless it and get them filed and that type of thing. So people who can write, maybe people who have some knowledge of legal documents, or maybe someone who's been in the community management business as well. If people can't write, you don't want them on there.
Julie, someone asked about the management course on how to read financials, and you talked about, and where can they go to get that? You had mentioned.
I have online classes for board members, and I have online classes for managers. The board member classes encompass, there's 4 separate classes within that. There is not a financial component in that yet. That is coming, but it's not there yet. However, in the manager classes, which by the way, all you board members would be great, it's still great to take them because it gives you a huge understanding of what goes on in the management of, in professional management, but it also has a whole component on financial statements and budgeting. So you can look it on you go to my website, adaman-inc.com. It'll come up here at the end, I think. If not, you can email me or you can email Dave or Hannah and they'll give you my information. And you can access the classes through there. They're all online. They're quite affordable, and you can look at the modules to see which ones you want to take.
Okay. Is the board president's duty to set up the meeting agenda and time? Should the management company be present at every board meeting, or can the board meet without their presence? How can a board member ask for a board meeting? So that was like 3 questions in there.
Okay, hit me with the first one again.
Okay, yeah. Is the board president's duty to set up the meeting agenda and time?
Yes, to do it or to cause it to be done. You can instruct management to do that.
Okay, but it's not necessarily board president's duty to set that up. It's
not unless your documents specifically call for it, but almost anything that the board has to do, not almost anything, but particular things that the board is supposed to do, they can do it themselves or cause it to be done. For example,
okay.
It may say the secretary is responsible for the minutes, but the secretary may not take the minutes. They may sign them, but the board has hired management to take the minutes. So you're causing that to be done.
Okay. And should the management company be present at every board meeting, or can the board meet without their presence?
The board can certainly meet without the management company's presence. There's nothing legal or illegal about any of that. I mean, management are supposed to attend meetings. They should, so they know what's going on, unless you have some particular reason that you don't want management to be there. If you are meeting more often than your contract calls for and you don't want to pay extra, well, that'd be a legit reason.
Okay. And how can a board member ask for a board meeting?
Typically, your documents may provide for that, or state law may provide for that. But if you're a board member, I would email the board president or call them and say, can we get a meeting together? Mm-hmm. Many times your documents will state that if 2 or 3, depending on how many are on your board, a certain number of board members, ask in writing for a meeting actually has to be called. So look at your documents. Look at state law, but sometimes, a simple phone call will do it. So I think we need a meeting. Okay, well, we'll do that. I've got one here. I got one here. Let's go back to, okay, Hannah? All right.
Yeah,
here
go
goes
for
back
it.
to the board meetings. And somebody, we're talking about the meetings. And someone says, a 1-hour meeting, it does not allow for discussion and debate. Aha, let's talk about that. So you have some decision to make as a board. And motion is put on the floor, it's been seconded, now it's ready for discussion. If you cannot make that decision in about 5 minutes, you do not have enough information to make that decision. You should not have lengthy discussion and debates during the board meeting. You should have enough information ahead of time, so you get the information in a board packet, presumably right now. And if your manager has done their job, or if whoever put the board packet done their job, and you have, okay, I've got all my information and I have a couple of questions. Ask ahead of time. Ask the board president ahead of time. There should not be lengthy debate or discussion. This is what sends boards astray. That's what makes board meetings long, unproductive, and it makes other people not want to be board members. Because especially if your meetings are at night, which still happens a lot, unfortunately, I would say they shouldn't, but they do. And if someone is still working, they're not retired, they are still working, and they get home at 6 o'clock at night and they have to feed the kids, and then they're going at 7 o'clock to a board meeting that's going to go to 10 because the board is going to argue over and discuss things that they should already have had some idea about and had all the information about. People don't want to be on the board. So yeah, that's how quickly board meetings should go. Okay, go ahead and find another one, Hannah.
Just real quick, to someone asked about repeating your website. So Julie's website is adaman-inc.com, ADAMEN-inc.com. So
If you can Google me, Julie Adaman,
Right.
you will find me. I'm everywhere. Yeah. Here's one. Wait, it had to do with how, if at all, can a board involve renters or tenants? And you know, back in the old days, we in management, and this is a long time ago, used to say, no, we only deal with the homeowners, and the owners can deal with the tenants. Well, that thinking has changed completely. I wouldn't say most, but I would say probably most associations, when they have newsletters, they send them out to the tenants too, if they can get their information. So, because the tenants, especially long-term tenants, what if they've been, in your building or in your community for 20 years, and that's not unusual. They're a part of the community. You want to bring them into part of the process as well. Now, they likely cannot serve on the board, but they may be able to serve on committees or on ad hoc committees, and they may want to be a part of it. So I would bring them in as much as you possibly can, particularly with information, newsletters, e-blast, that type of thing. Go ahead, Hannah.
Okay. This is actually a question. I've seen it now once, twice, a few times in here. Maybe you can just briefly explain what it is, but people are asking what are the CC&Rs? What are those?
The CC&Rs are the covenants, conditions, and restrictions. They are the legal documents upon which your community is based. They outline all of the responsibilities for the owners, responsibility for board members, though that more typically is in the bylaws, but some communities don't even have bylaws. They kind of combine them all. So it's the declaration of covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Originally, when the developer of your property, no matter how long ago it was, when they decided to build where they got the land they were going to build, they must file certain documents with your state. And typically those are the articles of incorporation. They're called other things in some other places, but the articles of incorporation and the declaration. That's the covenants of conditions, CC&Rs. I just said it. Covenants, thank you, David. I was having a senior moment there. Covenants, conditions, and restrictions. Thank you. Whew. That's what they are. So if you have not seen a copy of your CC&Rs, you're a homeowner or a board member, you can get a copy. Management will have it, or typically other board members have it. In fact, you should have received a copy of it when you closed escrow on your home.
And they should be recorded.
Yes, I'm sorry. Typically, they are recorded with the county of where you are located. So when you close escrow, and your escrow company, if you indeed do use escrow in your state, that should all be given to you with your closing. So yes, they are filed with the county. If you can't find them, you can find them with your county.
You should consider the CC&Rs, we get this question a lot, as part of what you're buying when you buy into a community. So you buy your house, but you're also buying all the covenants, conditions, and restrictions as well. And so that's all part of what your title does. So that's a big issue, and a lot of times you'll want to run your communities differently, and things have changed, and unless it's illegal, made your covenants or CC&Rs are made illegal, then you're kind of stuck with it. Or you have to have a supermajority to change the CC&Rs. Yeah. And that's hard.
Yeah, and Dave's absolutely right. It's always a big issue, especially when new owners don't receive copies of the CC&Rs, or they receive them and nobody reads them. And then you realize, I can't wash my car in my front driveway because the CC&Rs prohibit it. You're like, what? But you got to read them, got to know what they are. So if you guys don't have them, ask management, ask another board member, or you can find them typically with your county recorder.
Great, thank you guys. We'll take one aloud. Let's see. Miguel, I see your hand is raised. Do you have a question?
Yeah, so I have a question about code of conduct, policies, or something like that. It kind of made me start thinking about what you had said about the board, but particularly I'm looking for that for the board, and what's your recommendations on that?
I'm all for that. I love a code of conduct. I also love a standard for business practices and procedures for associations. Sometimes they can be voluminous. They don't necessarily have to be, but I am all for it. And it's not like it's really all that enforceable, but the good thing is that when new board members come on, you can, give them copies of this and have them sign something that says or ask them to sign something that says they read it and agree to abide by it. Will they always? No, but it kind of puts everyone on notice. I'm all about that. I think that's really important. I've seen it work extremely effectively in communities.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Miguel.
Oh, here's someone that I'm going to refer this to Echo. Somebody asked, is there a local place to get summary resources for all state laws for HOAs? Do you guys have that on your Echo website?
Yeah, we do. We certainly do at echo-ca.org, www.echo-ca.org. And you can also, there's plenty of locations to find it. We have a whole resource of information. So.
Okay. Let's see. Any other ones that you see for the group as a whole?
Yeah, here's a quick one. Somebody said, where was the ad? And I think they're talking about the Geico ad. Well, it was on TV, but you can actually find it on YouTube. Just put Geico homeowners and it should roll up on YouTube.
Yeah. It's not a screensaver for you?
No, I could have put it behind me. This would have been great.
I've got one here that I think might would be good. Where in the agenda should the public comments period be placed? So I think that's more the open
It
forum.
depends on it depends on what state you're in. I believe in the state of Nevada, you actually have to have it within the board meeting time, but there's a couple schools of thought on it. Most associations have it at the beginning of the meeting, right? So before call to order, they have a homeowner forum.
Right.
And then other associations have it at the end of the meeting because by that time, typically they've worn all the homeowners down and they don't want to stay very long. So it just depends. It's a political decision on your part, but I think most people put it before the meeting starts.
Yeah, some will have it in the middle of the meeting too. So.
Well, yeah. Actually, the thing about having it in the middle or at the end, a lot of the questions that people are going to talk about before the meeting has started, you're going to answer in the body of the meeting through your actions. So there is certain reasoning to that. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, and Echo does, for our Echo members, we offer online board meetings through our Zoom account. We'll schedule it and send you the information so that you can share it with your other board members and homeowners. And I attend a lot of those in the first 5 to 10 minutes, and almost all of the ones that I've had to attend, they do that in the beginning. That's what I see most commonly, is in the beginning. Okay.
Yeah, I want to make sure everybody heard that and said that, because you can get Zoom. Would you repeat that about Echo hosting the Zoom for them?
Yeah, so for our Echo members, we do offer Zoom online board meetings. So you can register on our website, echo-ca.org, fill out the registration page, tell us when or what day, what time, how many people you think you're going to be attending. We do ask for a second option just in case that one's already filled. But we will schedule the meeting for you. We'll send you that information so that you can forward that to everybody that needs to be aware of the meeting that's happening, and we'll help you along the way. Answer any questions about how do I do this, how do I operate Zoom, and we'll be on there for the first 10 to 15 minutes to help get everybody on board, and then we'll let you spread your wings and fly.
And I believe that's free. To members? Am I right?
It is free for members.
Somebody found the ad. They put the. If you look at the webinar chat, somebody found the ad, so they've got the link up there to YouTube. But I would say real quickly on Zoom meetings. I mean, obviously you're all on this now, but I don't know if you guys have realized this or if you had meetings doing Zoom or even conference call, but all over our industry, it's everywhere that people are talking about this. Meetings on Zoom or on conference calls have become shorter. They're more concise, and there is a lot less of the peripheral complaining or the grandstanding that goes on, but from homeowners or board members. And I always, that can take up a long time at meetings, because what was really politically powerful, if you stand up in front of the board and tell them what's what, looks kind of silly on a screen about that big. Oh, sorry, that's my phone. On a screen about that big. So people the board members have been loving this so far. And I can tell you for my own meetings that I sit through, especially the one that I have a rental in there. I mean, our meetings went from about an hour and 15 minutes to about 45, just because it's just boom, 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 and we're done. So really great tool, folks.
The other thing that's happened is a lot of absentee homeowners, those that live outside of the community, are now getting engaged. Or if they are a person that travels in the community and they're on the board, or considering being on the board, but they travel so much they can't make the meetings. This is a really good way to say that's not an excuse anymore, and people from anywhere with good internet connection can actually be involved. There was a note done at the California Law Revision Council or Commission where they are looking at making this. They've written a memo to the legislature to make this part of California law to allow it. So
from now on, not just COVID related. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, we are out of time. We've got a couple more slides on just some quick things we want to let you know about. Julie, do you want to talk briefly about, for our ECHO members, what they can take advantage of?
Oh, yes. If you're an ECHO member, you can take our CAM 101 for board members, but you get the first class free. So you can go to I believe you guys have a link to it on the ECHO website, right, Hannah?
Yes, and it'll be sent in their post-event materials as well.
Yeah, so you can take that one for free. You just put a free code number in there. See if that's, I'm sure you'll find it extremely valuable, especially for new board members. But actually, I find that most people who have been board members for quite a while learn all kinds of things when they take the entire offering. Quite affordable.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Looking forward to it.
And just upcoming events, July 23rd, we have our virtual legal resource panel. It'll be presented by Mark Walensky. He's also the chair of that resource panel. We'll be getting some good case law updates that's open for homeowners and board members as well as our professional service providers. And then July 30th, and sorry, the legal resource panel, you can go ahead and register for that. It's open for registration. The link, it's also in our events section on the ECHO website. And then the HOA insurance and liability on July 30th with Elliot Katzevitz and Sandra Gottlieb. That will be open for registration coming next week. So be looking for that in your emails on the ECHO website, and I hope that we see you there.
Okay, there will be a little charge for the legal resource panel.
Right. And then we kind of talked about this briefly in the beginning, if you guys caught it in right before the meeting started. So September 25th and 26th, we'll be having the ECHO HOA University and Expo. This is going to be a completely different experience than we've ever done before and that the industry has ever done. It's going to be completely virtual, so you can enjoy it from your home, from your office, wherever you have internet, you can join us. And the 25th and 26th are going to be our live days, but the one awesome thing about this is you will have access to all of the content, all of the vendors, all the presentations for a total of 30 days. So you can't squeeze all those presentations in one day. You may have to step away, something happens. Rest assured, you can still go back and watch everything and make sure you're not missing anything for the next 28 days after the 25th and 26th. And this is also in collaboration with Levy Erlinger and Company. They'll also be having their 34th Annual Community Association Managers Conference and Trade Show. So that will be a track, one of the tracks at this event where he'll have great presenters and presentation information. And we look forward to seeing you. And this will be available for registration coming very soon. But we just wanted to let you know that we're still having our annual expo, which is going to be a little bit different this year. And we're excited, and we hope to have you there and tell everybody about it. I think it's going to be great.
Can I say a couple words about that? Because I noticed I had several questions about painters and where can we find a painter, where can we find a reserve analyst and all that. We will have an exposition. You can actually go into the room on your screen and speak to people, and you can do it, chat with them, you can text them, or you can actually talk to them in person. If the technology allows us to do everything we're doing here today, you can do there. So it's a very good opportunity. We will have one track of educational classes it's based on, we call it the Board Basics class, and you can attend that, and that'd be really, there are 4 classes that'll be taught, and we'll go through the financial unit as well. So it's a really great opportunity for you to step in and be part of the team, part of the ECHO program.
Yes. Well, we're excited and be looking for this to open up for registration very soon. All right, and if you're not an ECHO member, we really encourage you to become an ECHO member. You can do so by emailing jprice@echo-ca.org or call our office. That number is 408-297-3246. There's a lot of benefits and resources that are available to you as an ECHO member. So if you're interested, I know we have a lot of you on here that are not members. You can contact me and I can put you in contact with Jacqueline, or reach out to her through email. We'd love to have you part of our membership community, and that way you can get the most out of all the resources and education and be the best board and community that you possibly can. And so thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Julie, for another great presentation. We loved having you. Thank you for,
Thank you.
Thank you for your time and your humor. Never trying to hold back laughing so much most of the time. You're so awesome. Thank you.
Laugh about it.
And thank you for everyone for attending.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ann.
Bye-bye.